Who is this fellow?
Luffy.
Luffy who?
The Luffy kicks the bad guys' butts too?
Right you are, Logan.
One Piece, Chapter 205.
The Sandband's secret fort.
What a way to end a volume, I tell ya. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the tantalizing tale of One Piece. Our last chapter, of course, saw us with it really being kind of a clash of the titans, so to speak, you know, as Croc went and took the sheath off of his hook, revealing it to be a poison hook, and you know, informing Luffy that he would grace him with the opportunity to battle him a third and final time. But it was going to be a battle to the death. And really, that's kind of how things left off. Certainly, we had, you know, the convergence of, well, Vivi and Usopp have been together. They were able to, with the help of the Navy, get away from the Baroque Works agents and you know, go towards wherever it is that Vivi, you know, had thought this this projectile, this cannon, to be, you know, fired from. And they only have a couple minutes left. So that's how the chapter left off. And that's how things pick up ultimately. We see Vivi and Usopp. They've obviously been given the opportunity to, you know, to run and to, you know, they've not been slowed down by those Baroque Works agents because of the help from the Navy. But still, they're very short on time. They literally have like 90 seconds left. And Usopp's like, listen, you know, enough with we can't this. We have to, okay? In 2 minutes, either we'll have won or we'll have lost and everybody will be dead. So we need to figure this shit out. So we find out that they're running towards the clock tower. It's the only place in Alabasta that, with all this smoke and dust and everything coming up from all the fighting going on, that's high enough up, but is still concealed enough to where nobody would think about it, and you can see the square from there and fire a cannon from, right? So to me, that seems kind of hokey that the tallest place and the most obvious thing was not checked earlier, or not thought of earlier, but those are one of the few and far between complaints that I can come up with, you know, from this particular series. So we wind up seeing, and again, we see kind of a couple of different, Vivi and Usopp as they're running. We wind up seeing that Chopper and Nami have come to meet up with them. We also see a brief encounter where Pell is flying overhead, and he's like, I saw that red star go up, but I don't know exactly where it's from because all the smoke and dust down there, and he's kind of flying around looking, you know, because you're thinking, well, Pell could get you up to that clock tower, you know, if you needed to get there, right? Then all of a sudden, poof, you know, a stray bullet comes out. I thought it was a stray bullet, and we see that it's like this little frog gun. It says, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. I shot down a giant bird or something like that. And we don't know from who or what have you. That gets revealed towards the end of the chapter, because at first I was like, what the hell is going on here, you know? So Pell goes and, you know, he falls down and crashes. Things are not looking good. We then go, and the meat of the chapter, the middle towards the end of the chapter, is the encounter of Luffy and Croc. And it's really kind of cool. I mean, ultimately, just how it's played out and how it's depicted is very, very nice. I can't wait until I actually wind up seeing it in the anime as well. But it's just done very well. We have, you know, Luffy and Croc kind of dodging some of each other's blows. They're both bloodied, obviously. They're both beaten. You know, Luffy's connected with Croc several times. And it's really just kind of a back and forth type of battle. Luffy lands a hit or a couple of hits, and then Croc goes and dodges a couple and gets the upper hand on him. Luffy goes to do the gum bullet and you know, has to wind up stopping it halfway through because Croc pulls up his magical dehydrating sand hand and is going to, you know, just try to suck the life out of Luffy again. Luffy's able to try to turn and move to the side and still hit him. And again, there's a lot of this back and forth stuff. Luffy is able to dodge that poisonous hook several times, and then Croc goes in as like a show of how badass this thing is. He goes and just kind of goes over like to this, you know, pillar or this thing of stone and kind of like touches it with the hook or hits it with the hook, and it just starts like disintegrating, and you're like, wow, that's some bad poison. That's some bad stuff, right? Definitely not good. So again, they wind up, you know, doing some back and forth. Croc then goes and is able to actually move around, get the upper hand on Luffy, and he's actually able to hit him with the hook we see. And again, this is, and if I say some of the things out of order, it's, you know, it's like 10 or 12 pages of complete madness where, I mean, there's just these great panels of action, you know what I mean? So I don't remember exactly, like, if he punched him first and then he slashed him. I just know that about midway through this point, after there's been some great, you know, great action depicted, that Croc does in fact get Luffy with the hook. Luffy, though, is jacking up Croc left and right, man. I mean, it's just truly a titanic battle. It's just a, you know, and Croc is just like, So what winds up coming to be ultimately is, after this back and forth and this fighting and Luffy of course getting hit, is that, you know, towards the end of this section, this portion, this part that we see at the chapter that ends the volume, we see Luffy go and he's just kind of bloodied and beaten, and of course he's been just beaten on, you know, on Croc like a drum, and Croc's just like, you know what, it'll only be a matter of time, you're done now, you know, he's like, I took you out in the, and then he goes into his whole thing about, you know, I buried you in the sand, you know, I ran you through with my hook, you know, all the different things that he's done to him, you know, I dehydrated you and left you for dead, you know, sucked all the life out of you, you just keep coming back, but this poison will be your final demise, because once this poison sets in, you're done, right? And then the last panel is Luffy just kind of like got, you know, just real cool looking, man, all scarred and beaten and whatnot, like Oda likes to draw with the cross hatching marks on him, so it just shows that he's just like fucking pummeled, you know? And Luffy's just like, you still don't get it, do you? And I just love that shit, because it's just, and that's the last thing we see in the volume too of Luffy, you know, so we don't even get exactly what he gets to say, but I can only imagine it's basically just like, you don't get it, dude. I am going to kick your ass. I am going to beat you, and then I'm going to eat a bunch of frickin' meat. You know what I mean? So, you know, sorry, I just thought about beat my meat, because I said beat you and then eat my meat, but whatever. Anyway, that's just my sick mind at work over there. So that's how that portion of the chapter ends, and then the rest of the chapter is played out with them trying to, you know, get up into this clock tower. Vivi's at the bottom of it. She's like, there's no way we can make it to the top in a minute. I was hoping Pell would be here by now. Obviously, he's been shot down. They don't know that, and she's like, damn it, you know. So then all of a sudden we go and we see from like several floors up in this clock tower, because this clock tower is pretty huge, we see Sanji going, he's like, oh, Vivi, Nami, how are you guys, you know, and all love-struck and shit, and they're like, how did you get up there? And he's like, I saw the note that said the clock tower, so I went in the clock tower, right? Right as that happens, and they're like, okay, great, you know, now we got Sanji, he's already halfway up there, right? Then all of a sudden, Zoro appears from another window, and they're like, what the hell, how'd you get up there? And he's like, I don't know, the Navy kept telling me north, 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 so I just kept going up. And Sanji's like, you idiot, up and north mean two entirely different things. And Zoro's like, well, whatever, no matter, I'm here, right? So they're like, okay, that's great. Now they're in there, you know, they can, you know, go find that. That's where the cannon's going to be shot from. Go find the people that are going to shoot it and take them out, you know. And Vivi's like, no, they can't do that, because there's a secret stairwell that takes them to the top. They can't access it from where they're at. There's a secret stairwell in the far back corner, and you can only access it from the first floor, right? So, you know, fucking convenient. So then they're like, well, you know, I'm sure Zoro can, you know, beat through the walls or whatever, cut through the walls. Sanji could kick through them if need be, but that may cause the explosion, you know, from this cannon or what have you, you know, it being destabilized. Then the chapter winds up going and ending right after that. We have like a one-page spread. The clock tower, the face of it kind of opens up or whatever, and we see it goes and pops out, and they're introduced to us, these two goofy-looking bastards. We've got Miss Father's Day and Mr. Seven. And I'm like, okay, because I knew that there were some Baroque Works agents missing in there as far as number-wise, you know. I mean, I'm just a simple man, but I can count fingers and toes, so I can get you up into the 20, you know, 20 range without having to unzip my pants to get to 21. So, the point being is that I just assumed that they were off doing other things or whatnot, but they've been revealed that these are the two that were given their final mission is basically to go and fire this cannon in the square. We see them, you know, they're kind of, you know, the usual thing that Oda does where you see the characters kind of drawn out and portrayed. They're like, boom, and then there's a little box showing who they are, you know, the Baroque Works agents. And that's their task, obviously. That's what they've been tasked with. That's their end game. And so we see them. And that's ultimately really how the volume and the chapter ends. There's a quick panel where Vivi's like, oh, Mr. Seven. And like she recognizes them because she was in the Baroque Works. But that's really about it. They're at the bottom. You know, Zoro and Sanji are about halfway up or whatever, but supposedly have no access to this upper part. And then we also see that it must have been, you know, I believe it was Mr. Seven's gun, his rivet gun, or maybe it was Miss Father's Day. I forget which one was which, but one of them was the one that shot down Pell, obviously, when they were in there just, you know, waiting for things to go off. And they're like, by my calculations, there's 30 seconds until we got to set off this explosion or until we got to fire this gun, this cannon, what have you. So it definitely leaves you on a cliffhanger for the volume over there. It was a good volume. I enjoyed it. It was certainly a ton of fun, and I can't wait to dive into and dig into the next one. So ultimately, I think that my question, though, is going to be, at this point in the story, do you really, to me, these Baroque Works agents that are introduced when Croc is like on death's doorstep and every other one's been defeated, you know, and taken up by the Straw Hats, do these agents, Mr. Seven and Miss Father's Day, do they really hold any meaning for you? I mean, for me, I look at them and I'm like, you know what? I'm not an idiot. In the next couple of chapters, you're both going to get your asses beat. You know, the floor is going to get mopped with you. And to introduce these agents this late in there, to me, it wasn't like a surprise. Like, I could have cared less if it was like, you know, like a little hobo midget. And I have nothing against hobos or midgets or anything like that, but it could have been anybody, you know what I mean? Up there firing the cannon. I really wouldn't have cared, because at this point I would think, you know what, they're just so insignificant. Even with Zoro and Sanji and everybody else kind of being a little bit beaten up, a lot beaten up from their battles, I just look at it as like, they've already taken out the cream of the crop. They've already taken out the generals, so to speak. So it's like, who gives a shit about these agents, you know? Just my personal feelings. I don't know, though. Maybe they play some kind of important part, or maybe it is a little more difficult than I anticipated. But leave your answer to that question in the comments down below, brothers and sisters. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button, if you should think that I deserve it. And subscribe if you have not done so already. We look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation.
Remember to subscribe, or you will feel the full power of the dark side.